Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
My name is Lucas, and I'm a 35-year-old office worker. My wife, Sophia, is 33 years old. We have a daughter who attends kindergarten. Our friends, Daniel, 36, and Ava, 32, also have a son who goes to the same kindergarten as our daughter. Daniel works hard at a large corporation. He frequently goes on business trips and often works on weekends, which leaves Ava feeling lonely most of the time. I learned about this from my wife, Sophia. Daniel seems to have followed an elite career path, and Ava appears to be proud of that. She often tells my wife that she's enduring the current situation for now. One time, when Daniel had a day off, our families went to a lakeside together. Having a barbecue by the lake was an absolute treat. The children were engrossed in playing in the water. We had recently heard news about numerous accidents occurring at lakes, so my wife was keeping a close eye on the children. Daniel also joined them in the water to ensure the kids weren't in any danger. Since I had handed over the driving responsibilities to my wife, I was able to drink freely that day. I might have overdone it a bit, but I decided to enjoy myself fully, thinking it was a good opportunity. Ava spent most of the day comfortably seated in an outdoor chair, drinking. I thought I was having a normal conversation with her, but for some reason, I got the feeling that Ava's gaze and overall demeanor were somewhat flirtatious. Whenever my wife and Daniel went towards the lake, Ava's eyes seemed to change suddenly. Her posture also appeared to deliberately show the inside of her t-shirt. I could occasionally see her cleavage. I might have been misunderstanding the situation, but from any angle, it looked like she was trying to seduce me. Ava is slightly on the chubby side, but she has distinct double eyelids, a very pretty face, and quite a large bust, making her an attractive woman in my eyes. Ava seemed a bit tipsy too. When my wife and Daniel weren't around, she approached me and said, "Lucas, you're handsome," in a meaningful tone. I was a bit scared that I might misinterpret her intentions. Nothing else particularly noteworthy happened that day, and our enjoyable lakeside barbecue came to an end. However, a few days later, Ava did something surprising. She told me that since the lakeside barbecue, she and Daniel had become closer, but because he's usually too busy to spend time together, Daniel asked me to be a playmate for her and their child. After that, Daniel became even busier, working on weekends and coming home late on weekdays. As a result, my wife, always worried about Ava, started spending time with her on weekdays too, inviting her and the kids to go out together. My wife and Ava's relationship grew to be like that of close sisters. On holidays, I often invited my wife and daughter, along with Ava and her son, for outings in my car. We go on picnics, visit amusement parks, or go shopping together. We treated each other like one big family. However, I found it increasingly difficult to suppress my complicated feelings, as Ava's gaze and behavior seemed to be subtly flirtatious. Ava would typically wear thin, light dresses that were quite revealing. When she sat down, her underwear would occasionally peek out from between her legs. The low-cut neckline of her dresses meant that when she leaned forward, I could see deep into her cleavage. I found myself stealing glances at her when my wife wasn't looking. Despite the internal conflict, I enjoyed going out with Ava. I couldn't possibly share these thoughts with my wife, but I worried that I might make a mistake someday. My wife, being considerate of Daniel's feelings, had started recording videos of Ava and the children playing together. She thought Daniel would want to see what he was missing out on. Whenever Daniel happened to have a day off, my wife would show him these videos. I, too, would watch these videos that my wife had taken. Inevitably, my eyes would be drawn to Ava, and each time, I'd find myself indulging in inappropriate fantasies. I felt incredibly guilty towards my wife. However, I knew that if I were to actually engage in an inappropriate relationship with Ava, there was a high risk of being seen by someone in our apartment complex. Gossip spreads quickly in such close-knit communities. It could potentially destroy the happy home I had with my wife and daughter. So while I allowed myself to enjoy Ava's flirtatious behavior, I was determined to prevent things from going in the wrong direction if Ava were to actually try to seduce me. I kept telling myself that these situations only happen in movies or TV dramas, not in real life. I convinced myself that I was just overthinking things. But then, something unexpected actually happened. Every year, we had a tradition of visiting my parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner and to meet with relatives. My wife and my mother got along very well, so in recent years, my wife and daughter would go to my hometown a week before my Thanksgiving vacation started. They would enjoy some time there, and I would join them when my vacation began. This year, my vacation started on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That weekend, on Saturday, my wife and daughter left for my hometown. After seeing them off, I returned home alone. I was enjoying my rare alone time, drinking beer from early in the day, lounging in the air-conditioned room, and relishing a holiday free from any interference. I was considering ordering some food delivery when the doorbell rang. Slightly annoyed at the interruption of my solitude, I grumbled, "Who could that be? Don't disturb my alone time." I checked the monitor and saw Ava standing there with an unusual expression on her face. I quickly opened the front door and said, "Hello, what brings you here? My wife isn't home today." Ava replied, "Oh, I know. It's not good for your health if you don't eat properly. I'll make something for you." With that, she came inside and headed straight for the kitchen. I was startled for a moment, then quickly approached Ava. "But where is your son?" I asked. Ava replied, "He's out bug hunting with his friends today, so I left him in their care." This meant Ava had time until the evening, and with my wife and daughter away, I had time too. The situation was becoming increasingly dangerous. Ava's figure in the kitchen looked particularly attractive. Today, she was wearing a dress unlike her usual attire, a white fabric that seemed to have an ethereal, translucent quality. The dress's silhouette accentuated her curves, flowing along her soft contours and highlighting her figure even more than usual. As sunlight streamed through the window, it illuminated her form in such a way that it almost appeared as if she wasn't wearing anything at all. The scene before me was like a masterpiece painting come to life. I found myself taking a deep breath, desperately trying to suppress the surge of emotions rising within me. It was a futile effort, though. I could feel my body responding in ways I couldn't control, my heart racing and my palms growing sweaty. The sight of Ava, backlit by the sun, her figure clearly visible through the thin fabric of her dress, was overwhelming. I knew I should look away, that I should maintain some semblance of propriety, but I found myself utterly captivated, unable to tear my eyes away from the vision before me. Trying not to let Ava notice my reaction, I sat on the sofa and sipped my beer for a moment. Then Ava announced, "All right, it's ready," as she brought out a few simple appetizers. It felt almost like we were a married couple. "Looks delicious." "I'm sorry, I've been drinking since lunchtime," I said. Ava responded, "Don't worry about it. My husband is hardly ever home, so I'm always relying on you and Sophia. Please let me return the favor sometimes." It was truly a special Saturday. While alone time is nice, being treated like this by another man's wife wasn't bad either. Ava came out of the kitchen and sat next to me. "Mind if I have a drink too?" she asked, retrieving a beer from the fridge. We awkwardly clinked our bottles in a toast. But then I noticed Ava was staring intently into my eyes. I was already quite aroused, and I think Ava had noticed. Being in comfortable home clothes, it was difficult to hide my reaction. That's when Ava said, "I wish I had a husband like you, Lucas." I was shocked. She's clearly trying to seduce me, I thought. I tried to make excuses. No, I'm just an ordinary office worker. I'm not as successful as Daniel." But Ava continued, "You have weekends off, you're strong, and you're handsome." Oh, what am I saying? Don't mind me. But I couldn't help but mind. A moment of silence followed, and I stood up to go to the bathroom. As I thought about it rationally in the bathroom, I realized this was a truly dangerous situation. It seemed like Ava was ready to give herself to me completely, but I also thought that an opportunity like this might never come again. With these thoughts, I returned to the living room to find Ava sitting deeply into the sofa, her underwear almost completely visible. It seemed deliberate, positioned just right for my angle of approach. I sat down next to Ava again, our eyes meeting. Then Ava said, "Hey, Lucas, would I be good enough for you?" Caught off guard by the sudden proposition, I could only respond with a surprised, "Ava?" Then Ava said, "I think I like you, Lucas. We can keep it a secret, Her eyes had already completely changed to that mode. Ava then straddled my lap, facing me directly and staring intently. It became reality just as I had imagined. I couldn't believe this was really happening. Her kiss was soft and sweet. When her lips touched mine, a sensation like electricity coursed through my entire body. Ava's scent stimulated my nose, and her body heat warmed my skin. As the kiss deepened, I lost my senses. Ava's hands caressed my back, and I wrapped my arms around her waist. Our breathing became ragged and our heartbeats quickened. Ava slowly began to unbutton my shirt, and I unzipped her dress. As the dress fell to the floor, Ava's beautiful body was revealed. She had clearly prepared specially for today. Elegant lace-trimmed lingerie enveloped her body. As I removed her underwear, her white, soft skin greeted me. I slowly kissed along her curves and explored her intimate areas. My desire was at its peak and was enough to satisfy her. The thrill of tasting the forbidden fruit, along with the pleasure, drove us to climax. She lay in my arms with a very satisfied expression. After we had sex, Ava smiled and said, "I'd like to continue this relationship, even if it's only occasionally. I promise we won't get caught." I agreed to keep it our secret, as it wasn't an unpleasant experience for me either. Even after the Thanksgiving holiday ended, Daniel remained busy with work, and we continued to go out frequently with Ava's family. At the children's request, we often went on outings where I could appreciate Ava's charm, such as trips to the swimming pool or insect collecting. Honestly, I was desperate to suppress my emotions. However, Ava was careful not to get caught, and she didn't act strangely when we were with the children and my wife. Sometimes Ava would make eye contact with me and give a look that seemed to glance upward, but I always tried to avoid it somehow. Still, I felt a sense of relief. However, recently I became suspicious that my wife seemed to be getting closer to Daniel. She said she was only showing him videos during weekdays, but something felt off. So I contacted Daniel and made up an excuse about work to arrange a night to meet. Since Daniel and I were drinking buddies, we met at a local bar to chat over some drinks. To my shock, I discovered that my wife had been intimate with Daniel, and he seemed quite uncomfortable about it. Daniel explained that it started innocently enough. They were watching videos of the kids together, sharing laughs over their expressions. But gradually, my wife began to flirt with Daniel. He admitted that he found her attractive and eventually gave in to her advances. However, being the conscientious guy he is, Daniel felt guilty about the whole situation. When I suggested meeting up, Daniel took the opportunity to confess everything to me. After hearing this, I proposed something unexpected. What if we tried swapping partners? At first, Daniel didn't quite grasp what I meant. But after thinking it over, he replied, that might not be a bad idea. It could eliminate the guilt and make things more open and enjoyable. I'll talk to my wife about it right away. Later that night, I went home and told my wife about our conversation. She was pretty surprised at first. She started by apologizing, but when I confessed about my involvement with Ava, she exclaimed, "Really? So we're even." When I suggested the idea of swapping partners with Daniel and Ava, she was initially shy but eventually agreed, saying, "Well, since it's out in the open now, it might be okay." With that, our preparations were complete. We decided to go through with the partner swap on a fall day when Daniel's work schedule cleared up. To avoid any gossip in our apartment complex, we planned a trip to a spa resort under the guise of viewing the autumn foliage. The kids were thrilled about the trip and could hardly wait. On the day of, Daniel offered to drive, so I agreed to take the wheel on the way back. Given the nature of our plans, I was pretty nervous and my mind was racing with anticipation. On the way, we stopped at a large adventure park to let the kids play to their heart's content. We hoped this would tire them out so they'd sleep early that night. After enjoying the beautiful autumn scenery, we arrived at the resort. We started by relaxing in the spa to unwind. I turned to Daniel and said, "Looking forward to tonight." Daniel replied, "I'm not sure if I can handle seeing Ava with someone else, though." I admitted, "I'm anxious too. I love my wife, but I'm also curious about seeing her with someone else. It's complicated." Daniel, sitting on the edge of the spa, responded, "Still, I'm excited. I hope we can continue this kind of relationship with you, and your wife in the future." As he said this, his face seemed to flush slightly. For a while, Daniel and I continued our conversation in the spa. I noticed Daniel had become quieter, and I tried to gauge his mood, wondering if he was feeling nervous. Dinner was a buffet with a wide variety of dishes that both adults and children thoroughly enjoyed. As expected in a spa resort, there were many other guests in swimsuits or robes around the spa and pool areas. I couldn't help but notice them, reminding me once again why I love spa resorts. Our accommodation was a suite with 2 separate rooms. The kids insisted on sleeping together in one bed, so we put them in one room. The 4 adults lay side by side on one bed in the other room. The time had finally come for the partner swap. Everyone had been drinking since dinner, so the mood was quite lively. Ava and my wife were the first to throw off their hotel robes. I thought to myself, they seem eager. Ava looked incredibly attractive without her robe. The 4 of us exchanged glances, silently agreeing to swap partners, and lay down on the bed. Right next to me, my wife was being affectionate with Daniel, while I was gently caressing Daniel's wife, Ava. Both wives were visibly nervous and shy, as this was their first experience of this kind. I tried to speak to my wife, who responded with a blushing, "I'm embarrassed." Her shyness was endearing. Ava was more forward than she had been during our previous encounter at home, and I found myself following her lead. The fact that we were swapping partners in a spa resort, able to see and hear each other's interactions, was an additional source of excitement for me. The children were sound asleep and didn't wake up, allowing us to enjoy ourselves without any stress. Knowing that our spouses were right there, participating in this consensual arrangement, Daniel and my wife continued even after Ava and I had finished, giving us the opportunity to observe them closely. My wife protested slightly, saying, "Don't stare so intensely," but I wanted to commit every detail to memory, knowing this might be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. This event marked the open acknowledgement and mutual acceptance of our partner-swapping arrangement, which had previously been kept secret. The next morning, we were tired from the children's early and noisy wake-up, but I took another dip in the spa and gazed at the sky, thinking, perhaps this open relationship could last if we establish clear rules. We might be able to share enjoyable times together. With these thoughts, we concluded our trip. Back at home, my wife exclaimed, "That was so much fun. Let's do it again." It occurred to me that she might have enjoyed it the most out of all of us.